Story 1. Soap making, beer brewing, radio operation, food preservation including canning, curing and lactofermenting, and gardening. Story 2. General medical knowledge and first aid depending on the supplies available. Emergency room and critical care nurse. I also make a mean potato soup. Story 3. I am an executive chef and nutritionist. I also used to forage wild mushrooms and other edible plants and sell them to high-end restaurants. I can trade my food for other basic needs. Story 4. I am obese with severe attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and a sleeping disorder. I will notice every threat approaching our camp at all times, and I can survive without food for months. Story 5. I can fly real helicopters and airplanes. If I can get to one, I am either a fugitive or a hero, but either way, I am gone. Story 6. Qualified as an automobile mechanic, and my day job is an industrial electrician. I would either be very useful or immediately useless depending on how society collapsed. Story 7. I have been a medic, welder, soldier, rock climber, electrician, and handyman, all for pay. For fun, I do archery, shooting, hunting, and work on my car. I think I am a well-rounded person with enough hobbies and skills to do well in most situations. Story 8. I can whistle quite well as long as my lips are not too dry, too wet, or too tired from whistling. Story 9. Cooking, baking, fishing, hunting, dog training, horse riding, horse training, shoeing horses, knitting, spinning fibers into yarn, crochet, sewing, weaving, tying knots, basic pottery, basic paper making, making lye soap, making creams, lip balms and lotions, gardening, canning vegetables, basic carpentry, basic plumbing, herding cats, washing clothing by hand, making vinegar, making cheese and yogurt, milking cows, farming and animal husbandry, foraging, herbalism and wort cunning, canning, dehydrating, pickling, archery, making arrows and bowstrings, making basic shoes, basic blacksmithing, carving and whittling. I am just an old farm girl. Story 10. My 11-year-old and I play this game all the time. We even have a plan for the zombie apocalypse. The current plan is to go north and make our way to Greenland or Iceland. The 11-year-old has many unsharpened or decorative swords and is very confident in using his bow and arrow from his archery team experience. He also has plans to immediately obtain firearms, despite us living in a gun-free home. I, on the other hand, am an overeducated lawyer. My first stop would be to go to a library and gather books that would be helpful. Maybe I can lead others well. We will need structure and rules for a new society. In the end, Kid B, the 11-year-old, and I have decided that Kid A, the 15-year-old female, is the one to watch out for. She will definitely take a central position in the apocalypse. The poor spouse, though, he is just a super nice guy and an artist. Will he survive? Story 11. I have O-negative blood. I am a skilled marksman, a butcher, and can preserve foods in various ways. Story 12. I am a toolmaker by trade, so I would probably end up being the local blacksmith if I survived the initial onslaught. Story 13. My experience in scientific laboratories will likely transfer well to restoring basic electronics, communications, and infrastructure. Additionally, I have the ability to quickly acquire new skills through reading. Story 14. Animal rearing, food production, ability to track and identify, knowledge of ecosystems and parasites and bacteria, limited medical training. I have a degree in zoological science. Additionally, I have other knowledge of strategic combat planning from extensive reading. Story 15. Medicine Man. I create natural and synthetic treatments and remedies for a wide variety of conditions and illnesses. No superstition, all based on science. Salves and ointments, tinctures and extracts, teas and tonics. Story 16. I am a medical professional with many physical copies of educational material, including textbooks and worksheets. I also enjoy cooking and baking, which is a critical life skill and can be used to trade goods and services. Medical care and meals can make a significant difference in a deteriorated society. Story 17. Fishing, hunting, gardening, brewing wine and liquor, woodworking, and similar activities. Do not trust me with edible berries or vegetables, though. I do not know about that. Trauma aid as well. Story 18. I have been cooking meals from scratch with limited ingredients for 45 years. I can make a meal out of anything edible. Story 19. 20 years of scouting, 20 more watching survival shows, and all 40 in poverty. So pretty much all the basics. Food, water, shelter, first aid, orienteering, defense, and more. I also have physical copies of the Anarchist Cookbook and the Worst Case Scenario Survival Handbook, just in case. Additionally, I have an inquisitive mind and a tinker's brain, so I can engineer just about anything with the right or close enough resources. Story 20. I can generally navigate almost anywhere without a map. I have enough handyman knowledge to probably put together something mechanical into working condition. If that fails, I have people's skills and know how to garden and make beer, wine, and vinegar, all surprisingly related. Story 21. I sew, knit, crochet, bake, cook, garden, can, make jelly and jam, know how to card wool, and can do minor woodworking and plumbing. Story 22. Leatherworking and the basic skills to set up a tanning site. I was really into steampunk and real leather armory, so I can even make shoes. Story 23. 22 years as an aircraft mechanic and crew chief. Experience that carries over into car mechanics. Amateur electrician. 30 years of gunsmithing and weapon usage. 40 years of ranch work, including riding horses and raising animals. Hunting, fishing, cooking. Avid outdoorsman. General handyman work including framing, drywall installation, carpentry, painting, insulating, weatherproofing, property management, and repair. Completed 3 survival, evasion, resistance, and escape SEER training schools. Combat training and tactics. With actual combat experience as a flight engineer. General gear familiarity and usage knowledge of setting up and using United States government issue, USGI field gear beyond most people's understanding. Welding and sheet metal work. Tool usage, knowledge, and repair. Hazardous materials, hazmat knowledge, storage, and disposal. Petroleum, oils, and lubricants. POEL. Usage, knowledge, storage, and disposal. Basic knowledge of explosives and devices. Aerial gunnery experience with the M134 minigun and M3 aerial .50 caliber machine gun. Skilled cook. Story 24. Social skills. A mentor once said, "I have game. Drop me anywhere in the world without resources, and I will build strong connections. I could form groups, negotiate, and potentially talk down a robber." Story 25. I am pretty handy. I can keep small engines running and handle similar tasks. I will trade my technical skills with someone who is good at farming. Story 26. Carpenter, millwright, fixing large machines, fisherman, drone builder and pilot, and cannabis grower. I know a few other skills, but those are the ones that will help me get through the gate and prevent me from peeling potatoes every day. Story 27. I can cook. I can make wine and beer, and I would venture a guess that making liquor would not be overly difficult either. I can build. I am an information technology professional, so I can work on computers if they are still working. I have also taken many healthcare classes in college. Although I would not necessarily want to perform open heart surgery, I would likely do okay for basic healthcare needs and could probably perform some extractions on extremities. Story 28. I can forage, hunt small game, and I know herbalism very well. I can preserve my own seeds, build my own home, do my own composting, butcher large game, and garden a little. My husband, on the other hand, can hunt large game with a bow, cook over an open fire, preserve food, garden and manage issues with his crops, create his own hybrid plants, start fires, tie any knot, fish, identify most plants in the wild, build a house, dig a well, cut lumber, and survive almost anything. He is a former Eagle Scout, an active prepper, a homesteader, and a horticulturist. I am his wife, dragged along for the ride, who just happens to like building things and has butchered large game in the past. Story 29. cooking, gardening, and basic farming, homebrewing wine and mead, intermediate car maintenance and repair, good with animals, and basically a tinkerer and handyman. If society collapses but there is still electricity, I am good with computers and at repairing electronics and appliances. I would be a useful person to know and an asset to a group, but I would be at a disadvantage in an individualistic, every person for themselves situation. Story 30. I am at least minimally competent in the entire 1980s version of the United States Boy Scout Handbook skill set. General first aid, fire making, camping, knot tying, map reading, fishing, wilderness survival, and canoeing. I can clean fish, raise and butcher chickens, and work a vegetable garden from site preparation to storing produce for the winter. I can cook complete meals with basic ingredients, simple tools, and an open fire. I have built a lean-to and worked on the walls, but not the roof of a log cabin. I am reasonably competent with all common hand tools. I have used them for building basic furniture, roofing, setting posts, and fence building. I know how to sharpen knives. I can do mathematics up to geometry without reference materials, sufficient for planning most construction and logistics projects. I can load most common handguns and rifles. My ability to hit a deer-sized or man-sized target at a distance has not been tested outside firing range conditions, unless you count a few games of paintball decades ago. I can swim over a mile in good conditions. I have been trained with self-contained underwater breathing apparatus gear, and am comfortable with diving masks and snorkels. I am experienced at entertaining children, from toddlers to tweens, with storytelling. I have a memorized collection of stories ranging from Brothers Grimm fairy tales to Chinese, Indian, African, and American Indian folktales. I can recreate from memory a number of interesting board and card games. Story 31. I like to think I am kind of a resourceful person, though I am scared of a lot of things. I think if it came to it, I would do what I have to. Story 32. The ability to recall and explain vast knowledge, from farming and first aid to engineering and survival tactics, could help rebuild systems and teach others essential skills. Story 33. I am a registered environmental health specialist, trained in environmental hygiene. I know how to prevent the rapid spread of disease and avoid illness. Food safety, that's my expertise. Water sanitation, me again. Wastewater disposal, yes. Solid or medical waste, that too. Vector control, pollution, radiation, underground storage. All my areas of knowledge. In emergency situations, disease can spread quickly. Professionals like me keep it manageable so medical personnel can keep up. Additionally, I am skilled in cooking, bread making, hunting, gardening, and general survival skills. Experience in the Boy Scouts has been useful. I also understand the basics of smelting and greensand casting, allowing me to create simple items from reclaimed metals. Story 34. We are hopelessly interdependent, and thinking you could go full zombie apocalypse Mad Max survivalist is a fantasy. If society collapsed, I think many people would die by suicide. Sorry to be dark. That being said, I believe we have a pretty decent chance of overcoming our issues. Story 35. Jam making is very simple but not necessarily easy to learn without the internet. It is extremely important in a subsistence economy where fruit sugars and vitamins are available only a few months of the year. Story 36. Fish, garden, cook, general repair skills, knit, crochet, general knowledge and tools of spinning fiber to thread or yarn. Good with animals, including livestock. I would probably do okay with treating basic injuries. Story 37. I am good at growing plants and knowledge about plants. I can forage, although I may accidentally harm myself with that skill. Lastly, I am skilled at freshwater fishing. Story 38. My father taught me how to hunt, fish, and camp almost anywhere in the wild. If I am far from the cities and have some gear, I believe I would manage pretty well. However, who knows, I might still die on day one in a completely foolish way. Story 39. I'm a wildlife biologist. I have taken multiple wilderness survival and first aid courses over my career. I spent about 10 years working in remote forests in Canada. I am also a naturalist. I know how to identify plants and which ones are safe to eat. I have done numerous solo remote backcountry camping trips for recreation. I would just head north with my wife and dogs and build a cabin. Story 40. Cooking and butchery, small engine repair, general handyman services including minor electrical work, plumbing, and carpentry, fabricating eyeglasses from base materials, storytelling and leadership abilities. Story 41. I can build you almost anything. I am a master fabricator and skilled at gold panning. I am also a good shot with iron sights on a 30-30 rifle and an even better shot with a scope. Story 42. I used to be a passable blacksmith and can smelt iron, or I reckon I could build the smithy itself too. Story 43. I am a maintenance man. I can build a basic and functional toilet, water heater, or shower from scrap. Story 44. It feels strange to say, but leading a group is something I do well. I am a competent corporate middle manager and know how to allocate tasks and communicate effectively to get everyone on the same page. Usually, this results in profitability, with profit being a euphemism for survival in this scenario. More realistically, I am a skilled home mechanic and understand the basics of welding. However, I am getting too old for that now. Story 45. I can fix or build most things: electrical, carpentry, and plumbing. I can also perform brain surgery if needed. Story 46. I know how to get fiber from various plants and animals and prepare it. I know how to twine for string and rope, how to spin for thread and yarn, and how to choose which natural product to use for each of these purposes. I can prepare both wool and plant fiber for spinning, spin it into yarn, and knit, crochet, or nalbind into something warm to wear or in which to carry your goods. I also know some natural dyes for when society is back on its feet enough to care what color its pants are. Story 47. I am a surgeon. I specialize in vascular surgery but still remember general surgery. I will probably be treating infections, abscesses, or war injuries depending on the level of combat involved. Story 48. Hunting, tracking, basic gardening and irrigation knowledge, welding by trade, carpentry, plumbing. I can fix almost anything on a vehicle, tools, and parts dependent. Reloading ammunition, long-range shooting, long-range reconnaissance. Tactical combat casualty care, first response emergency care qualified, basic paramedic. Military trained with deployment experience in combat arms role. Advanced tactical driving skills. I can play a little guitar. Story 49. I lived in the swamps and woods of Florida for almost 7 months before I moved to the Grand Canyon. I learned a lot during that time. Story 50. I am a university-trained registered midwife with years of experience in hospital births, rural home births, and low-resource setting births. Story 51. I know how to garden well, so I can grow some food. I am also bilingual, so I can translate if we lose the ability to connect to the internet or if translation services are unavailable. Story 52. But I think the most niche and uncommon one is clothing and textile repair. Clothes start wearing out after a few years or days of use, depending on the quality. Extending the life of garments can be more useful than making new ones if you do not have access to bulk fabric. Story 53. Bushcraft, wilderness survival, home brewing alcohol, basics of forging, advanced firearms knowledge. I have an extensive collection of books on how to survive off-grid or in traditional ways. What challenges me is that I am overweight, so I would have to get fit quickly or risk being eaten by cannibals. Story 54. I am really good at figuring things out without getting annoyed easily, even if I fail a few times. Literally anything, I will sit there until I get it right or working. Story 55. I have learned to detect dishonest people incredibly effectively. If you are being untruthful, I will notice it. I also have a great talent for gardening, and I am 6 feet 5 inches tall. People tend to listen to tall men for some reason. Story 56. I don't care about wearing the same clothes repeatedly or eating the same food continuously. I think if society collapses, it will be like Survivor without the fun challenges. I can camp and survive without worrying about being dirty or eating barely enough. As for being tough and building things, not so much, but surviving on the bare minimum is a skill I have. I grew up poor and simple living is fine with me. I can garden, scavenge, and I've even eaten squirrel. I'll be fine. Story 57. I can look impressive, making our group more intimidating so other groups up to no good would not want to mess with us when I am around. I am very useful. Story 58. I can prepare raw fleece, spin it, weave it, and turn the resulting cloth into clothes. I also know a fair bit of first aid and am a passable cook and gardener. My husband used to be a carpenter and knows archery and kendo. Story 59. Some emergency medical technician knowledge, some combat training, some bushcrafting experience. I'm a cook and know a few things about how to grow crops and fruits. I also have some gear for survival due to my bushcrafting experience. I think I could make it at least a few weeks. Story 60. I can stay up all night on watch. That's it. That's all I have. I sometimes think people are still being designed for specific roles in the tribes we lived in for thousands of years. When assigning skills and strengths in the pre-life design phase, they follow the same old patterns, saying, 1 out of every 50 people should be good leaders. So let's give this one all the leadership qualities. And we need a good percentage of hunters. So let's give these people athletic abilities. And we need an artist. We need people who love taking care of babies. We need smart people to learn medicine and ambitious people to explore and invent, etc. They also know that every tribe needs a handful of people whose role is to keep the fire going all night and watch for predators. That's me. That's what I was built for. Story 61. I have extensive knowledge about many random topics. I am a jack of all trades and can fill in anywhere to help out. Story 62. Strange, no one here mentions science or mathematics. Sure, not everyone uses algebra, trigonometry, or calculus daily, but that is only because of the shoulders of giants we stand on. Every genius that came before explored these subjects to the extent that the modern individual does not even have to bother. When civilization collapses, as it seems inevitable, resource logistics and information storage become critical. That is immediate efficiency. If you want to restart power, build protections in simple machines, restart crop ecosystems, or cure zombified piglins, having the culmination of millennia of trial and error in the form of a knowledgeable professor or two can turn survival into a rehabilitated society. Then again, I am not that good at either, so I am screwed. Story 63. I am skilled at demolition and can salvage parts from houses. If you need copper wire or pipe, no problem. Story 64. Lock picking and lock keying. Plenty of hardware available to do my job, with a greater need for it then than now. Story 65. Basic mechanical knowledge. That is really all I have to offer. By the way, these are the types of questions that explain why I still use Reddit. They make me think. Story 66. I can hunt and fish. I know plants and wildlife very well. I have a good combination of both brain and brawn. Story 67. I could grow enough food to live on and have the land to do so. I used to be an emergency medical technician, so maybe I could patch myself up if I injured a couple of toes while tending my garden with a hoe. Story 68. I can hunt, process, butcher, cook, and tan the hide of food animals. I also know how to grow and preserve crops. Additionally, I can build and repair most mechanical things, assuming I have or can make parts and tools. Story 69. I can sew and cook, and I store meat in my freezer. We would be clothed and fed for a while at least. Story 70. It is an underrated contribution. I dislike attention and telling people what to do, so there is no worry about me causing trouble. Story 71. I am a jack of all trades, master of none, so I have a lot of basic general knowledge. I would at least be useful as a helping hand, but that is about it. Story 72. Amateur radio for communications using battery and solar power. Decent at fishing with limited foraging skills. Good at starting campfires and an expert napper. I can take a nap at any moment. Story 73. I can grow fruits and vegetables. I can fire a gun with reasonable accuracy. I make beer and wine. I can make pottery. I have some carpentry skills. Story 74. I can fish, including using unconventional methods if necessary. I can butcher fish and game, cook well, and raise animals effectively. I own a Larica segmentata, which is Roman segmented plate armor made of 1.5 millimeters thick steel plates, along with other steel and leather armor pieces. I have a variety of historical weapons, including a flanged mace, spears, swords, sharp and functional, various knives, axes, bows, and arrows. I know how to use most of them, especially the bow and arrow. I am skilled at organizing and preparing. I live in the countryside in the Netherlands, which is helpful for hunting with bow and arrow and for foraging. Our home is surrounded by flat farmland growing potatoes, corn, carrots, beets, and more. There are many roe deer, pheasants, ducks, geese, hares, and rabbits nearby, and I know their usual locations. We also have a small canal in front of our house with abundant pike and other fish that we can catch and eat. I say, bring it on. Story 75. Sewing by hand and machine, tailoring, crochet, drawing, gardening, fermenting kombucha, sourdough bread baking, self-defense. Story 76. Cooking, first aid, marksmanship and archery, large vehicle driving, small vehicle driving and repair, computer local area networking for basic community communications, game hunting for short-term food sources, and I know how to grow and preserve food for the long term. It will be very difficult, but I am not giving up on the first day and refuse to do so until something stronger than me comes along and overcomes me. Story 77. I am a network engineer specializing in disaster response, capable of setting up communications. Additionally, I am an outdoorsman with basic survival skills such as starting fires and building shelters. My friend and I undertake a winter survival trip occasionally in the Sierra Nevada mountains in late winter. We also climb and canyoneer, so I have high angle and rope access and rescue skills. My friend participates in California Search and Rescue, CalSAR, year-round, and Yosemite Search and Rescue, YOSAR, during the summers. Together, we have the resources to assist many people, though we cannot help everyone on our own. Story 78. If the internet goes down, I am in trouble. If there is still electricity, I can build a Minecraft world or explore alone in No Man's Sky. Story 79. I studied to be a car mechanic but did not like it in the end. However, I know the basics. I am also studying to be a nurse. Story 80. I can make weapons and tools and I know how to cook. I can also learn how to do things I have not yet learned. Story 81. Coordinating, healing, and peacekeeping to get people to work together, though those persons will be the #1 target. Story 82. Grew up as a resourceful person, building things from scraps. Created clubhouses, potato cannons, booby traps, zip lines, and Tarzan swings. Also taught skills in carpentry, masonry, plumbing, and electrical work. Retired BMW technician. Worked with diesel engines and smaller gas two-stroke engines used in landscaping equipment, boat motors, and all-terrain vehicles. Developed organizational and planning skills from various jobs. I never panic, even under the most stressful situations. I believe this calmness will help reduce risks significantly. Story 83. I once convinced an entire university classroom that we were not in the mood to learn. By minute 15, even the professor gave up on the main lecture, and we just sat there talking about the coolest things related to the class subject, but no real learning took place. That day's lessons had to be removed from the final because there was no time to teach us the rest of the semester. I managed to get the entire crew, including the boss, at a bricklaying job to spend the first hour just hanging out as part of our 8-hour workday. I did the same for a landscaping business and even managed it at a welding production shop. At that one, my record was 1 hour and 15 minutes at the beginning. I extended break time by 10 minutes and made lunchtime another 15 minutes. My skill: systematically oppressive procrastination enforcement. You want me to join the group of pillagers and raiders that are about to target your small compound or village. It may be that I have leadership skills to the point I can destabilize any business from the bottom of the food chain and could easily rule the compound, but I do not have the wisdom or intelligence to do it. The class incident was a one-time thing. The jobs, I managed to turn that scheduled procrastination into a routine for over a month. Story 84. I am mechanically minded. I can build shelter. I can live in the wilderness for extended periods. I can navigate in the backcountry. I am good at organizing people and leading groups to a common goal. I can negotiate effectively. I am familiar with farming and animal husbandry practices. But most importantly, I know how to wipe with sticks and rocks. Story 85. Shooting, fishing, snorkeling, and scuba diving for food, as well as hunting. It would be disappointing, though, as I am a big fan of the internet. Story 86. I can observe things pretty easily. I can detect if there is an imposter, like there always are in an apocalypse. Story 87. None that are really useful. I am a doctor, but without medication and at least rudimentary equipment, I can only give you a general idea of how serious your situation is if you are hurt or sick. Story 88. Fishing, hunting, free diving, vegetable and fruit gardening, farming, fencing, some mechanical repair skills, general making and fixing of items. I can operate a trailer boat, canoe, or kayak. Story 89. I am a registered nurse with experience in the emergency room and general medicine skills, including cardiopulmonary resuscitation. I keep a medical supplies bag in my home and car. My grandmother lived through the Great Depression, so we always have stockpiles of food. I could live for weeks on canned food and pasta. I can also forage if needed. I have a gun and would hunt animals for food. Usually, I do my hunting in a grocery store. I know how to prepare an animal because my father was a hunter. Story 90. I can grow food, build things, sew, knit, and spin. I know a bit about food preservation and a small amount about herbal remedies. Story 91. I know how to load a single bullet into a gun and operate the trigger. To hell with sticking around for that, my friend. Honestly, I am good at fixing cars, so I will be useful until the gasoline expires or runs out. Story 92. If we are talking about an apocalypse-level societal collapse, probably the knowledge of how to have a self-induced stroke. I would rather opt out early than be forced out late. Story 93. I can hunt and fish somewhat decently. I also know how to skin more common game such as squirrels and deer. I am sure my technology background would help if there is still power. Story 94. Complete and total apathy. Working in retail for 6 years has given me the ability to be completely unbothered by the most random antics and nonsense. I would probably respond to an explosion with a look of mild annoyance. Story 95. Bushcraft, knotwork, field dressing game, setting snares, firearm training, and a lifetime of experience using them. Read the Special Air Service Survival Handbook, as well as the Irish Republican Army Handbook and the United States Army Guerrilla Warfare Handbook, and have copies of each. Randomly have 2 copies of the Special Air Service one. My family and I would potentially be fine and self-sufficient, just sitting here waiting. Story 96. I can butcher and cook. I can fish. I am not going to lie about my abilities. My wife is a nurse practitioner and she still loves me, so I hope that at the end of the day, she would make sure that I survive or put me down cleanly. I can cook. She can heal. We come as a team. Story 97. I am good at directing people and being authoritative in a crisis. Being able to keep people on task and de-escalate panic is an essential skill in any catastrophe. Story 98. I can hunt, fish, gut, and skin an animal and cook it over a fire. I can also start a fire and build a lean-to. I know a few edible wild plants in my area as well. Story 99. Absolutely none. But I am expecting the world's oldest profession to be hiring, so I guess I will do that. Story 100. I have knowledge in farming, from container gardens to large gardens. I also know how to work on electronics, and I am related to a knife maker who literally forges blades the way people did in Western times. If we are talking about the small town where I grew up, I know my way around every wood, hollow, and cow path. Story 101. As long as I stay local to the Pacific Northwest, I am quite good at foraging edibles such as mushrooms, berries, and seafood. I know how to brew beer and wine. I am a decent cook. I also have enough do-it-yourself and improvisation skills to make a lot of electrical and mechanical equipment work, which I think will become more valuable over time. I cannot fight, hunt, or lead very well, though. Story 102. I could gather my friends, go down to the Winchester, grab a pint, and wait for this whole thing to blow over. Story 103. I play a mean jaw harp. If that does not work, I will join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Every family has a basement full of food and water. It is probably a good coalition to weather the apocalypse. Story 104. Basic bushcraft, repair, construction, maintenance, and vehicle repair. Have an axe, tools, and a will to live. Story 105. I know how to cook with a wood fire and how to make the fire. I know how to make traps for small animals, tan their hides and hand sew. I know first aid. I know how to cut hair. I am a good shot with a gun. I know how to dress wild game. I can fish. I know how to make soap and the lye to do it. I know how to grow food. I know how to make wine old school style. I know how to can food. I know how to read a map. I am a retired computer repair technician and could get old computers to work. Story 106. I know how to put wooden objects together and grow food. I can fish. If necessary, I could take things from other people. Story 107. I can have children. That is it. I am an average cook and overweight. I do not really provide anything. The greatest thing I have done is have my boys, and I cannot even be the best mother to them. Story 108. I am highly effective at managing projects in high-stress situations, particularly go-to-market initiatives with senior-level stakeholders in Fortune 500 companies. This means I am skilled at managing issues during disasters. I have had the opportunity to take the lead in my community during emergencies when people froze. I have led coordinated responses and actions. Story 109. I could fend for myself in a decent climate. I bow hunt, fly fish, tend a garden, process my own meat and vegetables. I know how to build things. I can tie flies from what I kill, and I know how to process hides and make compost for fertilizer. It might all be kind of fun. I do not want to do it in Alaska, and I do not want to have to fight off zombies to do it. Story 110. I have a good proportion of muscle and body fat, so I will cook nicely if you throw me on the grill. That's pretty much it. Oh, and I am okay at picking carrots without them snapping off. Story 111. Construction including grading, framing, surveying, and general repair. Field aids such as field stitches and splint setting, marksmanship, and several other military skills. Story 112. I can deliver a pep talk strong enough to make you walk through a tornado. I mean, you would die for sure, but you would look really impressive doing it. In my group, morale as well as the death count would be very high. Story 113. I am not sure how useful it would be, but I can make things out of fiberglass. It is useful if you want to patch a boat or build something that does not mind getting wet like wood does. Story 114. I am skilled at identifying where tasks should be completed and instructing people on what needs to be done. Story 115. I have reasonable sewing skills, which, depending on how far society has collapsed, may or may not be useful. Other than that, I am probably just food. Story 116. I just learned how to solder. I can also ferment and preserve foods. I can curl up into a really tight ball. Story 117. Society collapse? If people still have houses, cars, and computers, I can do most repairs on all of them. I can fight better than most. Story 118. I am good at telling others what they need to do. Some will be assigned to scavenging and hunting, some to security, and some to repairing things. Story 119. I am really good at talking with people. I can meet people and, after some time chatting with them, have a pretty good idea of the types of things they like to hear and the things they may be agreeable to. I use this information to make people who are in some sort of conflict assume that I am one of the good guys in whatever conflict they may be experiencing. This makes them more likely to serve me in some way, maybe by listening to what I have to say when they otherwise would not be inclined to, or by being more agreeable to things I may suggest. If society collapses, I am probably dead though, so take that as you will. Story 120. Useless trivia. I know every mammal over half a kilo urinates for, on average, 21 seconds. Well, that and I camp a lot, cure meat, build things, fish, garden, know local edible plants, and how to identify a good bourbon. Story 121. Inherent general knowledge of mechanical systems and engineering, purely self-taught, with experience in metal fabrication and woodworking, electrical systems and wiring repair, general mechanical repair, and car repair. I do many things myself, sometimes using unconventional solutions. For example, using paper clips as makeshift springs or using random bolts, thick gauge wire, and a car battery to create an induction heater for unsticking rusty bolts. My greatest achievement is fixing a friend's old beat-up 1970s classic car at a track day using only duct tape, random metal bits, chain fence parts, and bolts I found. He managed to drive that car over 150 kilometers back home with the temporary repairs I did in under an hour. Given time and resources in an apocalyptic situation, I could likely learn blacksmithing if power tools were unavailable. In fact, I would probably proactively learn this. I am confident I can build proper shelter from any materials found and locate and purify reliable sources of potable water. I believe I would be fine in such situations. Story 122. I am a competent mechanic and carpenter. I bring my own firearms and am an accurate shot. I can operate a reloading press. These are traits and attributes that would be useful. I am small, so I can hide easily or get into tight spots. I do not talk unnecessarily, so you will not have to tell me to be quiet. Story 123. Imagination, ingenuity, ignorant self-belief, and drive. I must sound like a waker, and I probably am, but not because of this comment. We grew up without much money. We never went without food, clothing, or a roof over our head. But once they were paid for, there wasn't much left for anything else. It was Kmart, a brand like Walmart, sneakers, no chance of a pair of Nikes. No Rip Curl or Quicksilver clothing for me. I got to wear Catch It branded surfwear. I mean, come on. Catch It. Someone was taking the piss, and it went miles over my mom's head. I digress. I didn't have a lot of toys, so I made them. I had a $40 piece of BMX. So I scavenged and obtained bits and pieces to make my own fake Redline BMX. What I couldn't afford, I created, found, or was gifted. That mindset has stayed with me regardless of my income. For example, when I earned the most, I treated myself to a $3,000 car. When that was totaled, I replaced it with a $900 car I had to fix, with no prior mechanical knowledge and just YouTube to guide me. These days, I live an hour's drive from a decent hardware store. I can afford whatever I might need to buy there, but instead of the 2-hour round trip, I usually just make it myself. If or when things go wrong, people who have never changed a car tire, never grown or hunted their own food, or never built anything will be lost without others doing these things for them. People with the ability to make what they need from whatever is available will do best when our modern comforts are gone. Story 124. I am a little more than halfway through medical school. Admittedly, my medical knowledge and skills are mostly limited to diagnosis and prognosis, as access to medicine would likely be difficult. However, I used to be a marine biologist, so I have a good understanding of catching fish. I also know how to sail, and I am confident I could build a basic sailing vessel from scratch if I had a few tools. Story 125. I know many stories, and I am a fairly good storyteller. If society collapses, I hope someone will choose me to be their bard. Story 126. I am well acquainted with many edible plants and fruits around here that most people would walk right by without even glancing. Most people will focus on obtaining seeds for gardens, stockpiling canned foods, and most hunters will only be interested in larger game like deer, rather than small game like rabbits and squirrels or foraging for wild edibles. I will be eating well with my squirrel stew made with sunchokes, wild carrot, and wild onions, seasoned with spotted bee balm, as well as maypops, blueberries, pawpaws, all kinds of tree nuts, and more. The one thing I lack in that department is edible leafy greens. I will try poke next year now that I have done enough research to feel comfortable preparing it. I know thistle stalks are similar to celery, but other than that, I do not know enough of them. Story 127. I am in veterinary school, with extensive medical skills, knowledge, and practical animal husbandry experience. I was a university-level fencer and have navigational skills using map and compass. I also have sailing experience with traditional wooden sailboats. Additionally, I can perform basic woodworking and some basic cowboy skills. However, I rely on modern medications to maintain my health and well-being, so without a consistent supply of these medications, I am at a significant disadvantage. Story 128. I was in the military and I work in a prison. I know how to obtain prisoners and assign them jobs. If you choose me for your team, we can help prisoners get jobs. Story 129. Cooking, knitting, spinning, weaving, sewing, hand and machine, embroidery, canning, preserving food, washing, hand, fabric creation. Story 130. I have never stolen anything before in my whole life, but I would go crazy at every target. Let me tell you. So yes, I am the girl stealing food, makeup, jewelry, cute bedding, whatever when society collapses because I can. My nickname would be Steela. Nobody can steal the way I do, nobody. Story 131. I do not need all the toilet paper after a large bowel movement with watery diarrhea. The water is self-cleaning. Joke's on you, society, and the toilet paper industry. Story 132. Everything I learned in Boy Scouts from 1985 to 1992. I am also a skilled shooter, hunting with my grandpa for years. I am an avid fisherman, although I am not very good at it. I have worked in kitchens for about 20 years. These skills are pretty easy to learn. It may seem silly, but old Boy Scout books would be a treasure trove. Many people mention foraging, which is something I need to improve. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.